We are on the air. This is Radio Entrepreneurs. My name is Jeffrey Davis. And as we're closing out the year 2015, I couldn't be more excited than to welcome back one of my favorite guests. I might say I may be one of her great groupies, Mimi Goss, Mimi Goss Communications, and also Harvard University. And we're going to talk today about positive communications and, you know, how to keep positive our message to each other, right?
Thank you, Jeffrey. It's always fun to be here. Yeah.
What's the message? You told me your students are up to something today.
Well, I teach a course at the Harvard Extension School. I've taught it also at the Kennedy School. And the day before, which is today, their last class, when they do a final presentation, they do toasts or eulogies or tributes, and in 2 or 3 minutes. And they just, every year, they just are fantastic. So one of them is going to be doing it on Skype because he had to take his kids he was taking his kids to Disney World. So I said, well, can't you do it next week live? And he goes, no, I have to be in Disney World, and you have to see it from Skype, on Skype. And I think the whole idea of celebrating people at this time of year is, that's what this time of year is about being grateful for being alive and having wonderful people around us. And why not tell them while they're still living and while we're still living?
Right. I think that's very nice because there's a lot of positive that does go on in the world, and we tend to, I think a lot of our anxiety is focused on events that we can't even control, or may be in the future or may not be in the future. But there is a lot to be happy about today.
Well, one of the things about criticism actually is, because I do a lot of workshops with people and have feedback, and we always start with the positive, because people can only hear the negative if you start with the positive. And that's also a way of celebrating people, going, you did X, Y, and Z really, really well, and you moved the group forward or whatever, and then say, does anybody have any suggestions about how to improve?
Can we just talk a little bit more about that? I do a lot of workshops, especially this time of year. The firm does, Mage, my consulting firm. So we did one this week. We're doing one next week. We do a lot of them. A lot of people like to sort of end of year sort of think things through. We talk a little bit about your workshops. I'm sorry to take you a sidebar on that, but I think that's very interesting because, you know, so many of our clients, and I'll be specific, I'll point, family businesses get into a negative framework for communications.
And does it revolve around their relationships as family members outside of work then?
Yes, they're taking the family history and pathology and patterns, dysfunctional patterns and jealousies into the family business. And it's overlaying into a corporate environment and creating a culture that I think is counterproductive.
And how do you work with it?
Well, we try to get them to set new goals, to try to understand their patterns, and to try to get to set new goals and then try to work on new structures and commitments to new patterns. And
do they ever thank each other?
They do, a lot of companies, but some companies are stuck. I almost think it's like a fairy tale spell. Some families are under a spell, and they can't break the spell, even though they're aware of it. It is almost like a fairy tale to me. That's the way I see it as the outsider coming in. And it's finding somebody who's so driven to break the spell of the family curse that's over them.
So how do you do that? Do you work with positive?
I work with the motivation.
The motivation.
I work with the motivation of the individual who's most motivated to break the spell, the champion for spell breaking, the one who's determined to put their neck out on the line to change the history and change the future. Not change the history, but change the future.
You can Google me, Mimi Goss, MIMIGOSS, and my company is mimigoss.com, and I have a website, and just please call me.